Good evening, everyone. Okay, thank you so much for the warm welcome. Can we all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I'm super delighted to join us this evening, and I'm very grateful to the dynamic class, specifically. And for me, I would say that this is a class I hold so dear to my heart, right? I hold your class so dear to my heart because your class is a different class. It actually stands out in terms of organization in between. Your class just stands out, and that is very, very remarkable. Sometimes I used to joke about it, that I wish, God forbid, but I wish I was in your class. But that was in the light note. I'm super delighted to be here, and I hope we're able to get one or two things from this session this evening, right? So I'm aware that the theme is bad results, the way forward, good results, how to keep the ball rolling, right? And this particular theme is actually very interesting because it addresses both sides of the divide. It addresses both sides of the divide, right? It talks about um, not performing up to expectation, right? Which some people call failure, and also doing extremely well, right? And these parts or these particular situations are both extreme, right? Because one has the chances of bringing down your morale, right? While the other one has another chance of what upping your morale, right? So, but the most important thing is how you react to it, right? Is how you react to it. That is what really matters the most. First of all, primarily, your duty in school is to study, right? Is to come and study and to be the best. And for some people, right, their goal may be to graduate the first class. And I know that if I were to take a sample of the audience I'm speaking with, if I ask you how many of you want to make a first class, or how many of you are going to make a first class, right? I don't know what the responses will be like, right? But because so many things have happened over the years, right? Sometimes people have gotten the results they did not imagine. And I used to be the best in my university and in my secondary school rather. And look at me today, what's happening to me, right? But I want us to know that, like I always tell people, right, all of these things are part of your story. But it's also very important that you get needed lessons from them and move forward. So possibly you sat for your first semester exam and the results you got, you're not giving. You know what you wanted, right? First of all, you yourself, right? You like the system has failed, but please don't blame the system. Like demand at yourself because this is really about you. It's not about the faculty, it is your results, right? So for example, if you are expecting if you're expecting A in contract and the person has E, don't blame the system. First of all, be mad, right? Be mad at yourself, right? And be like, okay, why did this happen to me? Right? Even though, of course, you put it in, be mad at yourself. Because it's when you actually acknowledge what has happened to you that you can find a way. You get me? When you acknowledge. Right? But if you blame the faculty, you'll be like, the faculty is terrible. Well, they have told me that law of contract, nobody needs to have an A. You begin to wire your mindset in such a way that you won't be able to make progress. Right? So be mad at yourself. Acknowledge that okay, I feel how to go forward. What can I do better? What did I do last semester? Right? That failed me. And how can I complement that this semester? Right? I tell people that, you know, first of all, there's a technique in the faculty of law. And for many of us, we are still trying to actually even understand how the system, there's a system in place. And until you hack that system, quote and unquote. Can you guys still hear me? I feel like the network is fluctuating.
We can hear you.
I don't Huh? Okay, okay, okay. I can see reaction. I think I can see him. So, quote unquote, your grades may not improve. I'm sorry to say this. There's a system in place. And the first point of contact is that always finish your syllabus. I mean, this cannot be overemphasized. Finish all topics. Please. Don't pick and drop. Don't say, oh, I'll read two or I'll read four. Okay, because I can know 6 questions. I'll just read 6 topics. And no, finish all topics. It's very, very important. Finish all topics because you can never tell where the question will come out from. I learned a very big lesson in my second semester, a two, law of contract. I said I was not going to read the topic. If I remember, I think it was relating to remoteness of damage in my time, right? I said I was not going to read that topic. My wild card, such that that particular remoteness of damage was a subset of you having, oh, I think A, B, C. That remoteness of damage would have been something that would have saved me. No, okay, no, it was 5A, 5B, and 5C. So remoteness of damage was, I think, was the C part. It should have saved me. I would have had an A in contrast semester, but I didn't have an A because I didn't remoteness of damage. So I made the point of this that okay, all my courses, I'll finish them. So even if your lecturers do not finish the syllabus in class, please, on your own, finish it. And don't say, oh, because this lecturer said this will not come out, you will not read it. Okay, my network is a bit stable. Um, can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me? Sorry, I'm getting the okay, okay. So I was saying that don't say because your lecturer did not teach this topic in class, you will not read it. Or because your lecturer said that, oh, this one will not come out, you will not read it. Because the truth is, you cannot hold them to it. You can't say, oh, she said it's not come out. If she said it's not come out, if she tell you that it's not come out and it comes out, there's nothing you can do about it, right? You have to answer. I mean, I think they said something like that happened for your last test, right? When they said read the particular part and then that part ended up not coming out, and then some people were like, but she said, I said, bro, you can't hold your lecturers like that, right? The fact that they say, oh, this one will not come out does not necessarily mean that you hold them to their words, right? So ensure that you finish your syllabus. Read all the topics. It's very, I read all the topics. Because when you read all the topics, you become very confident, such that 6 questions, answer four. You be able to know that, okay, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. I don't know if it's something you do right, but try to ask. So like, most questions, maybe. Wow, this network. Sorry, I'm talking since I read. Can you hear me now? Network. Oh. Drama.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Good evening. Yes, we can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay. So apologies. Apparently the network is very terrible, and our speaker is trying to balance his network while the president-elect of the Faculty of Law is trying to balance his network. From what he has said so far, if you have any question, you can put them together, maybe in writing, because you join us soon and to continue from where he spoke, from where he stopped. I need to say. Apologies for the inconvenience. He will join us as soon as possible.
Hello, can you guys hear me now? Can you guys hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. The network was the network was very. So as I was saying, I said that I don't know if you saw past question. Past question is also a very pivotal part. The legal studies, right? Even though you don't take pen like write the answers, something that you can actually go through, like right. So you can actually read these questions and go through. Figure. So it's very important. And also one of the things I always tell people is that at every point in time, right, always ensure that you um have a target in mind, right? Because I feel like one of the problems that a lot of us don't have an expectation, right? You kind of like gamble and you're like, for example, now some people are like, oh, I should be able to have B in this course. So I should be able to have be specific. I should be able to have B. What B are you looking out to? Is it 68B or 60B? And what are your projections for the various answers? And what are your projections for the various answers? It's very important. I feel like to actually consider that, right? So if you're looking out for a B, for instance, oh, I want to have a B in this course. My B is a 68. I know that in my C, I'm having nothing less than, take for example, I'm having nothing less than, that is bad. Oh my God. What do we do? Should we go in front of faculty? Oh God. This is not okay. Don't be sure. But guys, this is crazy. Oh. I not get Zoom on my
All right. So as I was uh, thank you so much. I'm so sorry. The network is very shitty. I mean the Nigerian factor. You have it. Okay.
Okay, not all the number. What they are using as 60, 67, 68, break it down. So, okay, if I want to have 68 in this course, what will I have in my C, right? And what will I get per questions, right? Do you understand? So it's very, very important to do that. And also, very importantly, during your examination, always try to answer your questions. I finish. You have 6 questions to answer for. Do it always finish. I was a prof. I'm okay this evening and we're discussing again. He noted our conversations kind of like tilted towards the exam. And then he noted that one of the reasons for poor performance in the faculty is the fact that students do not finish their exam, such that they spend more time on one question than the other. Bro, all questions carry equal mark, right? And for thank you. And for every exam you don't finish, right, you are losing mark. So it's very, very important that you finish your questions, right? As a matter of fact, you cannot get the maximum score in that question. If a question is 17, you can never score 17 over 30. It has never happened and it's never happened, right? Because it's not physics, it's not chemistry, it's not maths, right? It's law. You can never have the maximum score. So ensure that you spread your scores across. Don't focus on number one at the detriment of number two, three, four, right? Ensure that you are answering everything evenly and make sure you finish your exam, right? Because that's also a factor. You'll be like, oh, yeah, unfortunately, like not finished. If you don't finish your exam, I'm sorry. There's no way you can have good score in that exam. I can tell you for free. There is no way you can have a good score, right? Ensure that in all your exams you finish. And also very important, read your questions, right? Read your questions. All of this I'm saying is just a build up to making you realize how that bad result came about, right? Because it's very, very important. Like I said, be mad at yourself. And that being mad at yourself would lead you to a realization, to understanding what went wrong. What did I do wrong, right? So it's very, very important that you read and understand your questions. If you get a question, there's a problem question, sit down and read. It's not everything that's an issue in a question, right? It's not everything that's an issue. There are things that are not, you would even know, right? So don't just raise issues unnecessarily. Read your questions, understand them, right? And fish out where the issue should be from, right? That's very, 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 very important, right? Time management is very, very key, right? Ensure that when you're writing an exam, spend adequate time on your questions, right? Spread your time across so that you'll be able to cover all of the lapses, right? And also this also boils down to instruction, right? To understand, to read the instructions, understand the question, because that's the only way you can provide um the right answer for your question. And also very important, I always tell people this: always ensure that you engage people on your courses, like your coursemate. Have a discussion with them, have conversations with them, because from some of these conversations, right, you would remember some things. I did that a lot with my guys, right? My coursemate would just be talking about law randomly. Sometimes in the exam, these things actually come in handy and they help out, right? This is just to buttress the fact that no one should be an island, particularly for the direct entry students, right? Don't feel out of place. Relate, mingle with your coursemate, talk to them, right? Talk to them, you know, ask them questions, engage them on academics. That's how your grades can be better, right? Seeing that we are, I mean, close to exam. So all of this I'm saying basically relates to exam. I'd have said listen well in class, but don't worry about that one for now. Next next session, you go harder, right? So, but this is particularly for exam period, right? Engage people. Because sometimes when you engage people, some of these things that they say, oh, have you read this? And you have not read it, you go back and read it. You'll be surprised that sometimes these things come out in exam. That happens to me so many times. I'll talk to my guys and I'll be like, this. I'll be like, I've read it over. I did not really focus on it. Say, go and read it. And then I'll read it and then it will come out in exam. So please and please, very, very important. Don't despise the place of engaging your colleagues on your academy. So that's a way to actually bounce back from the grades that you do not like. So now if you had a good grade, what do you do? Right? You have to keep the ball rolling. You have to keep the ball rolling, right? You have to First of all, celebrate yourself, right? Don't let it, um, you know, be the only thing in your mind, so that you begin to fumble, right? In my class now, for example, we had guys that started on 5.0, and today they are struggling for like they are fighting for their life. This year one first semester, they are 5.0. Now their grades is nowhere to be found, right? That's what happens when you don't sustain the momentum. You've had good grades, you have good grades. Don't feel like you have arrived, because every step gets tougher, right? And every step should be faced with the requisite, seriousness and demands it requires, right? So you've gotten good grades, go harder. Like read like you like read like your grades are nowhere to be found, right? Face your exam like, okay, this is the only thing I have to do, right? So don't let it get to you and such that, okay, you are complacent, you don't read anymore. No. When you have a 5.0 in first semester, second semester, if you have like, God forbid, a 3.0, it's bringing you down like mad. That's the truth about it. That's how the CGPA system works. For every step you take, the past shows forth, the present also consolidates itself. That's how the CGPA system works. So if you have had good results in the past, if you don't have good results in the present, your results will be terrible. It's be as if you have nothing to show for it. Right. So it's very, very important. You have good grades. Ensure that you consolidate on it, you complement it. Just keep going, keep pushing, and then I can tell you that it will always and only get better. All right. So please and please, I don't expect that anybody in this class will be like, oh, because I had this grade in contract, I'm done. You're not done. You've only started. You've actually only started, right? Because you're still going to face tougher things. So it's very, very important that you pick yourself up, right? Bounce back, and then focus on that which is needful. So I'll have to wrap it up here, because I have to run. Yeah, but I don't know if I'm taking questions now. I'm taking questions after the session. I'm taking questions now. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone. Hello everyone.
Okay, hello everyone. Uh, what's- okay, okay, hello everyone. We apologize for the network issues. Ethel and MTN and Drew are not on our side tonight. But if you have any questions, we won't be able to entertain them yet. But you can type in. Okay, please, if you have any questions for Shey F1, because it will be leaving very soon, please type in your messages now in the chat box, or if you would like to ask them, raise your hand as quickly as possible, because we need to move on to the next speaker. So do we have any questions for Shey F1 before he takes his leave? Any questions for Sheyi F1 before he takes his leave? All right, I'll take it as there are no. Okay, Ogabo Favor, please, you may unmute your mic and ask your question.
Thank you very much, Kemi. Shay, this was such a profound session. Thank you so much. And thank you to the organizers for having this webinar. Please, my question is for someone who constantly is trying to improve on their output, especially in tests and exams, but on the look of things, on an average, right? You notice that your grades are circling around certain scores. Like each question in exam is circling around certain scores. Say, okay, this is like becoming a consistent trait. How would you advise such a person to go about it? And considering that we are starting exams next week, what is the best way forward? Thank you very much.
Okay, that's a very interesting question. You're trying to say that okay, the person's grade has been taking a particular pattern, right? And you're trying to like just stop from it, right? I think that basically means that the level of effort being put in is not enough. Like you need to do extra. That's what it means. Because law is in such a way that you have to like spend time with it, right? So for example, if you're reading 2 hours, for instance, you can try to read 3 hours. And also it's very important that you actually engage people that you feel are doing well. Right. For me, for example, now one time there was a day I engaged the top performer in my class, number one guy in my class. And like, bro, come, make I see how you dey do am. And then he answered a particular question, right? A question that somebody and like ordinarily somebody will use like take for example like 3 to 4 pages to answer. Bro, this guy answered it in 1.5 page. Do you get? So so the point is first of all you have to try to like add more effort, right? If for example you're reading for 1 hour now, you can read for 2 hours. Secondly, also try to ask questions, like find out from people that are performing well. Oh, what is that thing you're doing, right? I read his answers to the question. I was like, bro, this like for example now somebody can beat about the bush before arriving at the point, but he is somebody that will just go straight to the point, bam, and then if he gets his mark, let me tell you the truth, right? Our lecturers mark a lot of scripts. As a matter of fact, they're not just marking just your own courses, they mark other levels too. Right. So to make it easier for them, right, try as much as possible to be concise in your work. All this merry-go-rounding, like the way you write, Shada, is like some form of merry-go-rounding. Like, for example, if you want to define contract now, just go straight to defining contract. Don't merry-go-round. It's not English, right? It's not poetry where you have to like write so much. In law, it's concise. Section 7, or for example, section 7 or section 8 of the Statute of Fraud Act. What does it provide, right? States it, bam. In the case of blah blah blah, the court held that, right? There are some cases you write facts for yes, but there are some other cases too that you don't necessarily need to state the facts, depending on how your writing progression is going. Right? You just state the principle was said in that case. Right. So it's very important that like the answer to that question is number one, try to do something extra. And one of the things to do extra is that putting in extra effort. Right. If you're reading for 2 hours before, try to increase it to like 3 hours or 4 hours. And also try to interact with people in your class that you feel are doing well. Try to understand what they are doing differently, right? So that it can also serve as a guide to you. I don't know if I'll answer the question, faith. Is it faith or favor?
It's favor. Thank you very much.
You're
I've
welcome. Yeah.
got
I saw an ant. Okay, the person has dropped the ant. So I don't know. Let me check. Let me try to check the chat box. Okay, I don't think there's any question there. So I think I'm permitted to fly. All right, guys. It was awesome engaging you, and I wish us all the very best as we progress. Thank you. Check the issues. Okay. Take the chat.
Thank you so much, Shay F1, for your wonderful contributions and everything you've said so far. We've learned a lot, I'm sure. And I'm sure if the network had permitted us, we would have learned so much more. But I believe that we've all gotten down a few tips on how we should go about our academics now from Shay F1. So without wasting much more of our time, I would like to read the bio of the next speaker for our academic webinar. All right. So our next speaker's name is Oluwabusayo Ifonlaja. Pardon me if I did not pronounce that name correctly. I'm not a proper Yoruba person. Well, Oluwabusayo is a double first-class lawyer and the overall best graduating student at both Nile University of Nigeria, class of 2023, CGPA 5.0. I'm shocked. And the Nigerian Law School, where he earned over 18 awards from a cohort of 7,000 plus. He is an award-winning writer, debater, and mooter, with notable wins including the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrators Essay Competition of 2023 and the BA Abakoba Onyejianya Legal Essay Prize of 2023. Pardon me if I did not call that name correctly. A published author in reputable journals, he serves as Deputy Editor-in-Chief of the Law Read Journal of Law. He holds professional affiliations with the Nigerian Institute of Chartered Arbitrators and the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators UK and the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators passionate about international humanitarian law. He has led advocacy initiatives, competed in the ICRC annual IHL MOOTs, and received the West African Law Students Association's Emerging Experts in Humanitarian Law Award. He's taking my breath away already, and I'm not even done. Currently a trainee associate at Olaniwu Ajayi LP, Africa's largest law firm, Oluwabusayo advises on complex corporate transactions. Known for his collaborative spirit, he aspires to be a leading global legal practitioner, using law to create meaningful societal impact. So, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, without further ado, can we make welcome our 5.0 first class graduates? Because we all need, to delve in his accolades. Make welcome Oluwabusayo Ifonlaja.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very
Good
much
evening, sir.
thank you very much for reading my bio. Is that somebody? Yeah. It's a pleasure to be here with every one of us today. I see it as a privilege to speak with great minds and future, legal practitioners. And just like what we are here to discuss it says, we are trying to talk about ways in which we can avoid bad results, and then, we can keep a progressive, have progressive good results. The good thing is that university, it's like a marathon, right? Because we have you have a lot of time to prove and disprove, right? So, there's first year to the fifth year. So there's always time to, make amends. And then whichever stage you are, whether you are battling with, academic challenges, there's time to, to kickstart a progressive approach, and then things begin to change for the better academically. And then for those of us who are already on a very good academic track record, there's a need for continuity. So for me, I'll just be sharing a few tips. I'm aware that you'll be starting your exam in a week's time. So in a week time, I will try to majorly discuss on how you could make very good changes, or you could make something that could make a difference from now till you write your exams. But there are just some facts that we just need to know, probably not just for this exam, but for every subsequent exam that you would take, because there are some foundational principles that are very relevant, which if you take to, you imbibe, would be a very great help to you academically. But I would just try to structure my discussions with you in various forms. So first, I will talk about what is needed to be done before the exam, right? And then how to write exam, you know, appropriately, to get good grades. So there's something they always say, in school, in the university, which institution you find yourself, there are two important, parts of the journey. One, the journey of learning, what you do eventually before the exam, and two, what you do in the exam hall. Now, while what you do in the exam hall is the most important because that is what's essentially being graded, right? So, what you pen down, whether you're able to, communicate effectively what you know into that exam script, because that is the basis for which you'll be graded. It's very important. But then, as important as that is what you do before that, because what you do before the exam will determine how well you do during the exam, right? So let's just go straight to what do you do before the exam. It's very important that one, for me, mentality is the first thing, right? So because you don't do what you don't believe you can do. Because, for example, if you believe you are a C person, trust me, you hardly get an A because the corresponding effort you will put is that's just enough to get you a C. So you have to start with the mentality. What do you want? What are your goals? Right? It is fine to dream to have a C. People have different goals in life, right? So but then if you want to have an A, right, even though your current realities might be that of a C, but then it does not mean that is your reality, something that can change. So first start with the mentality that, oh, I want an A this semester, I want this, I want to have all A's, I want to have a first class, I want to do this, I want to do that. It starts with that because that will determine, it will determine the efforts you will put, corresponding efforts. Now, as I said, the beginning is the mentality, right? But it doesn't end with that because you need to sustain that mentality. And how do you sustain that mentality? By putting in the corresponding effort and discipline. Now, consistency and discipline is the word, are the key words, and they're interrelated in the sense that, when you discipline yourself, it builds consistency. And the more consistent you are, the better disciplined you will be. So you have to put in the corresponding effort. So I remember speaking from practical experience. For me, my own style was I read whatever we do that day, right? So that was my form of always catching up in class and ensuring that I'm, following through. So, for example, if we did 3 courses on Monday evening by 8:30, latest, I start studying. I try to read what we did in those 3 courses that day. And then, that is how it was. So if I just did one course in a day, I try to read what we did in that one course that very day. And then, that was the way I was able to, to continuously, keep afloat with classes. So I didn't necessarily need to wait till the exam or to try to comprehend certain information. So that is where one point comes with divide to conquer. So you don't need to definitely, so when you want to eat food, you don't pour all the cereals or all the tracks of the food at once. You take them little by little, and that's how education works. Taking the information little by little. That's why sometimes when you wait to the exam, or there's that level of tension and pressure because you want to put a lot of information at once. But that is just on the side. So yeah, that was the way I worked. And then early in the morning every day, I would take a textbook, on a topic, on a course, and I just used to spend like 1 hour, 30 minutes every morning just to read them briefly. That was just like we don't call it a fun thing, but it was just something, it was a habit for me just to, have a deeper understanding of the topic and have insight. So that continuous progress for me was important because each day I had an understanding of the topic from what was done in class and even from reading textbooks and all. But this is just an example of a study method. People have different study methods, right? Right. So I'm just citing an example of mine to show that, of course, you need to put that corresponding effort, and it's like a daily habit. It's not something that you do just once, you do continuously. It's a progressive thing. While I'm aware that there are certain geniuses that they just need to read few days for the exam and they are good. That is fine, but then are we all such persons? Are we all geniuses? So I feel it's just better and safer for everyone to start early and make it like a progressive learning approach, right? And I know across the line it can be challenging, especially if you are combining certain maybe extracurriculars or certain businesses, or people have different things that is going on for them while in uni. So it might be challenging to combine all this together, and that is fine. And that is why sometimes you need a little reward, and I will call it discipline system for yourself. So, for example, I remember there was a time towards my 400 level, I was dealing with a lot of extracurricular activities, and I started seeing that I was trying to, you know, you know, take one over the other, and then to ensure that I maintain that, I developed a little reward and discipline system for myself, in the sense that if I met up to my schedule for the day every Friday nights, I do a mini movie night for myself with snacks, and just to appreciate myself and cool down, recharge the next week. And then if I see that I did not complete my schedule for the week, maybe because I probably procrastinated, or a bit of the time I'm supposed to use to have fun, I use it to cover up for what I'm supposed to have done. So that was a way of motivation somewhat, because the journey could be difficult, right? So, and then sometimes you engage with friends, engage with lecturers, just engagement tries to keep the information stick into the memory, and then you could develop some certain strategies. The first thing, you need to understand yourself. So some people are people that can read 4 hours straight on a stretch. Now some people cannot do that. Probably they have low concentration, low attention span, and though they can read the 4 hours, but it doesn't necessarily need to have to be at a stretch. So, for example, I read for 45 minutes, I take 15 minutes break, I read for another set of 45 minutes, I take 15 minutes break, I read for another set of 45 minutes, and I do it that way, and I get my 4 hours. And then, so you can see that it's not necessarily, so you have to develop the right strategy for yourself. And the truth is that it's not necessarily about the number of hours you spend, but about you completing your schedule. So for me, if I have to read a particular topic and the topic takes me 6 hours to read, I'll use the 6 hours to read it. And if I were to read another topic and it will take me 30 minutes to read it, I'll use 30 minutes to read it. So at the end of the day, it's not about the number of hours spent, but whether you're able to complete what you are the syllabus and all, and remember the information. And then, of course, when it gets to exam time, if you've been reading steadily, so you would also have to read again, like, for the exam. And this one is going to be easier because you have some information prior. So it's more of like a revision, and that gives you more time to also look through past questions and, and address certain issues that you feel, okay, probably this topic is a problem for me. So it just has to do with adequate preparation, right? Adequate preparation before the exam. Now, moving to the next one, another important factor that is very, very important is what you do in the exam, right? And the reason why I say this is that sometimes you get into conversation with certain persons and you'll be like, and that guy is very smart, so he usually knows the answer, but probably the person is struggling with his grades, and might not necessarily be because or some so people who struggle with grades might not necessarily be because they do not know the answers to the question, but how do they adequately present them? So for me, I just say that presentation, is very important. And then sometimes it has to do with aesthetics, right? So if you serve me, so the difference, sometimes the food we eat from certain, if we go to a regular local restaurant, right? It's the same sometimes, most of the times, well, minus few instances and all. But it's essentially the same process that goes into cooking the food with some all those big restaurants, right? Essentially the same chicken you get from the KFC that you get from, you know, a regular chicken seller, right? Or food seller. But you know what makes the other one different and makes it more expensive because of the way it is presented. When you go into it has a very nice building. It is served in a very good package and all those things that essentially elevate the price. So at the end of the day, you're not only paying for the meal itself, you're also paying for the AC, you're paying for the fine building and those other things. So start citing the example and relating it to academics. So, the way you answer questions in the exam also determine how well you get. And so that deals with, properly answering questions. So I'll be dealing with two areas. So I'll divide it into two. So in terms of strategy, first we'll be discussing about content in terms of what do you write.
Please, can you
Yes.
hear me? Yes, please, we have like we have 15 minutes, so please, we need to stick to the time
Okay,
frame.
so yeah, so
Yes,
how
thank
many
you.
minutes do I have left?
You have 10 minutes left.
I have what, 10?
10 minutes, 10. Yes.
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So as I was saying, 1 second. So yeah, as I was speaking earlier, so dividing it into briefly, dividing into content and you know um and style. So how do you write it and what do you write? So in terms of what you write, I'll just briefly, essentially, we have two sorts of questions they usually ask. I usually ask. You have the problem questions and the non-problem questions. So the problem questions are those where there'll be a scenario. So usually in uni, essentially you use the IRAC method. So from scenario, you distill out the issues. And when you distill out the issues, then you start attending to those issues one by one. So for issue one, you mention you state the rule of the law regarding that issue. You discuss the rule of the law. You support it with your relevant authorities, then you apply that rule to the scenario, then you conclude, essentially the IRAC method. So you do IRAC for each of the issues distilled, then you conclude, right? While for non-problem question, it's more like prose. Now, the important thing about prose is that it's a prose, so you are given liberty to write, and then there's not really specific or stringent rule towards writing prose. But what I want to stress is that, people reading it at romance, right? And one of the ways to make your paper attractive is by having a good introduction and putting your best foot forward. So if you were to, regardless of the length of the work you want to write, they will eventually just first read the first ones and then they get an impression. So if you write not your best at the early start, the lecturer already gets an impression, okay, maybe this is a A student, this is a B student. And then if you now have your important points towards the end or during in the middle, it makes it difficult for the lecturer to change his mind at that point because you've created an impression of this is your score, and it's based on that he marks you. It's important to have a very good introduction, arrange your prose based on points and in paragraphs, right? So let me just essentially go to the issue of style. So in terms of style, instead of writing all your answers in block, it's not difficult for a lecturer to distill your points. Write in paragraphs for each point, put it in paragraphs, make your handwriting visible. You could use, underlining your authorities to show emphasis or writing them in a different pen. So these are different styles that people try to, use to ensure that in as much as they are giving it in terms of content, they are also, giving it as well in terms of style. So in as much as they are putting the answers right there, they are also, ensuring that their paper is neat and written in paragraphs, because in non-problem question, they write point by point, and then once your lecturer is able to appreciate your work, it's easier for them to apportion marks, because as much as you write a lot of points, if the lecturer is able to see it and easily pick it up, you might not get those marks. So, like I said earlier, just in form of summary, you need to adequately prepare before class, before exams, make it like a progressive thing so that it's easier to follow up, and exam periods are not too overwhelming. And then, it's important to learn how to answer questions. And also, as much as we put focus on content, we should ensure that it's written appropriately and we pay attention to style. And like I said, also in terms of style, knowing how many timing is also important. So usually, you divide the number of questions according to the hours. Let's say you have 4 questions in 3 hours, or for each question, 45 minutes. When I'm saying I'm getting, always going to the exam or with a wristwatch, when I say I'm always close to the 45 minutes mark, I move to the next question, because no matter how well you do in a question, you cannot get beyond the marks apportioned to that question. So you have to have it spread out. So those important points, just to know, so that you ensure that what you know is also communicated effectively in your paper, which is eventually graded. So with that, I think we can call it, we can put the course in here, and we can move to question and answers if there are. Thank you.
Okay, hello everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you so much, Oluwabusayo. So if you have questions for him, okay, I see a hand. Mopelola, please ask your question.
Yeah. So good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
So thank you for the tips, Oluwabusayo. So my question is that, so recently I read your interview with Sports Newspaper, and then you said you had a very strict routine, like reading before classes, going to library after classes, and then when you're back at your room, you read till midnight. So my question is that, what do you do when you fall short of your strict routine? What do you do when you are not like consistent with it? Like, how do you motivate yourself? And then also, how do you have other time to like do other things that you're doing, even with your strict routine? Thank you.
So, just to answer that, I have 2 realities: university reality and law school reality. Law school reality was, well, when you get to law school, you understand the atmosphere. So there was less of other things for me, because that's how law school is. It's less of other things and more, right? But then university, I was able to, combine a lot of things. But for me, how I was able to do that was time management. So for example, I ensured that I took things as they were. So I ensured that, because I knew I had a lot of things to do, once I put a schedule for one thing, I try to do it at that time, because I don't have any other time to, ship it in, right, unnecessarily. Because my idea was that when I have a routine, if I'm not able to do it at that time, it's a debt for me. So it's not something that, oh, I was not able to do it and it's gone. I have to repay it. I have to find someone to repay it. So that's how, because I had this, so that's how I was able to stick to the strict routine, because I knew the consequences of not sticking to my strict routine was to, this time that I scheduled for maybe a bit of relaxation, a rest, for like my weekly movie night. I knew that if I did not, follow my strict routine, it's my movie night that will suffer for it. And I don't want to go a week without having that. So those are one of the things of my little reward discipline system that enabled me to stick to my strict routine. And I try to avoid certain distractions. So, for example, if I were to study by 8:30, I don't keep pressing my phone till 8:30, because it's not easy to transition from doing something to something else. So I ensure that probably like by 8:20, latest 8:25, I'm off my phone. I'm already getting set for studying. So those are little habits that enabled me to stick to such routine.
All right, thank you so much, Oluwabusayo. Please, does anybody have any other questions? As we need to move to the next speaker immediately. Okay, in the absence of no more questions, we'd like to say a very big thank you, Oluwabusayo, for taking your time out to educate us and enlighten us on the few things we need to know to hasten up our academic journey into success. Now, without wasting much time, we would have to move on to the next speaker immediately, and I will be reading the bio of our next speaker. So brace yourselves. Once again, thank you so much, Oluwabusayo. Now, on to our next speaker. Bashiru Mohammed Oluwaseun is a first-class law graduate of Olabisi Onabanjo University, where he made history as the first Law Student Society president to achieve this distinction. Recently called to the Nigerian bar with a second-class upper, top 7% of over 7,000 candidates, he combines academic excellence with proven leadership. Bashiru has held key roles including Chief Chancellor and Academic Secretary of Legal Magnets and Company and General Secretary of the Literacy and Debating Society, where he fostered intellectual growth, honed advocacy skills and guided peers to excel in competitions. He has represented his faculty in multiple inter-university contests, and I am shocked to the core, often emerging among the top contenders, reflecting his competitive spirit and mastery of legal principles. Passionate about learning, leadership, and public engagement, Bashiru is recognized for his resilient organizational skills and ability to inspire excellence in those around him. And he will be here to inspire excellence in us tonight. So, without much more, hesitation, let's make welcome Bashiru Muhammad Oluwaseun.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Oluwakemi.
Good evening, Oluwaseun. It's nice to have you on this call.
It's a privilege. Thank you so much, guys. So I am currently at the NYC orientation camp, the Anopaja, Lagos, and this is a regimented camp. It is what they tell you to do that you do. So right now, I'm actually outside, and it's kind of noisy, you get. So I don't want to get punished. So that's why I'm outside, and I took permission from the camp RSM in order to have this webinar with you. So the essence of what I'm saying is that you should please bear with me. Bear with me. Don't mind the noise. Just try to understand whatever it is I want to say. And trust me, I'll be very concise in my discourse. Thank you very much. So, and let me start by saying I appreciate what the prior speakers have said. Like, they've really covered much. In fact, when I started preparing, some things that I needed to say have been very much covered. In fact, even made better, to be very honest. Yeah, so in order not to waste much of our time, I'll be very concise with what I'll be saying, and I'll be taking questions subsequently. So, going through the topic, the first thing that came to my mind was, okay, how can I relate to this? when I was in the university, before gaining admission into law, I was a philosophy student of Olabisi Onabanjo University. So while I was in 100 level, I wrote another jam. I sat for another jam, and I got enrolled into law the next year. So I started from 100 level again from the law faculty. So while I was in faculty of law, I actually tend to understand some things about law. The first thing that I did as a fresh law student was to get awareness, like to be aware of certain things. What do I mean by awareness? Number one, attaching myself to mentors, to people that I feel have done better and will be able to mentor me. And when I mean mentorship, I don't mean mentorship from afar. I mean mentorship from people that would be able to speak to me when they have the time to, people that will be able to impact me anytime I reach out to them. So I would also love us to imbibe that. So on second thing I'll be saying, number two, you have to know, you have to have a team. There is a saying that no man's an island of knowledge. Do you get? So the type of friends you actually keep really matters. While I was in 200 level, we were four in our team. So we usually call ourselves Team Excellence. So the four of us, what we do basically here is just to get sources from different departments. While I was the president as a 500 level, before being the president, I was in a society called Legal Magnets and Company. I had another friend in another society called the Christian Law Student Fellowship of Nigeria. I had another friend from, we just had, like, the four of us just belong to different academic divisions within OOU, Olabisi Onabanjo University. So the essence of combining these four forces together is to actually get sources, materials, mentorship from these organizations in order to combine them to become whole. So what I'm trying to say is the synergy has to exist. When you get materials from Class 1, you get materials from Legal Magnets, you get materials from NAMLAS, you get materials from the Law Student Society, editorial or educational body, and the likes. So when you guys come together, you'll be able to form this synergy that really helps you guys grow. So that's that for that. So the kind of colleagues you keep, the kind of team spirit that exists between you guys also matters. So what I'm saying is, you might not really need to have a squad or a clique, but you can do this. You can also do this by reaching out to colleagues. Don't be shy. Don't be scared to reach out to seniors, to reach out to your colleagues that, okay, what have you read? What have you done? And the essence of team spirit is, as one of the speakers earlier said, one of the essence of team spirit is that there are some things that you might think that you actually don't know, or you might know, but you are not getting it right. That is just the essence of team spirit. Furthermore, I would love to talk about what you need to do in the examination hall. So I'll be categorizing this into three aspects. The first thing is that you have to correct your mistakes ahead. Like Ifola Jabusayo mentioned, he said you have the IRAC for the problem question, and you also have the pros for the essay questions. So what I usually do then was that, I usually use past questions. I can study 10 years past questions beforehand. And what I do is this IRAC method I usually use for the problem question, I would have worked on them earlier. So in case I see a question that looks like or that repeats itself, I am already prepared. And that aligns with my point of saying, correct your mistakes ahead. And for the pros, one thing I usually do is that for every question, for any essay question that I do, while I was in the university, for instance, I prefer writing essay questions than problem questions. Why? Because I write so fast and I write well. So I believe essay questions allows me to express myself as much as I want to. So what I'm saying in essence is, for the pros, for the essay questions, my introduction is always something that I usually work on. So like I mentioned, that I usually work with past questions. When I'm working with past questions, the first thing I usually do is to write my introduction for whatever topic I'm preparing for. If, for instance, I'm preparing for separation of power, I already know what to intro. My first two paragraphs, I would have written them somewhere that, okay, in case any question comes out from separation of power, I will have a general introduction for this. which will be my first two paragraphs, and they have to be top notch. They have to be very much top notch. So that's that. You have to correct your mistake side. That is, you have to work with past questions and do certain findings. Prepare yourself ahead. That's for correcting your mistakes ahead. The second category of these is to write fast. Trust me, the place of writing fast can never be overemphasized. While I was in the university, I belonged to a society called Legal Magnets and Company, and we hold our convergence on Saturdays. One of the things we do at the organization is something called Operation 4.5. Like we all know, for those of us that are here that our university operates a 5.0 CGPA, we know that 4.5 to 5.0 CGPA is first class. So we do Operation 4.5. And one of the basic things that we do in the Operation 4.5 is to test our speed. So you test your speed. For instance, a particular question, the first speaker mentioned something that while writing the exam, you don't just venture all the time on a particular question because you want to impress your lecturer or something. If you are doing that, it is at the detriment of the other questions you are here to answer. So what I do is that I write, I do my speed test. I do my speed test and look, okay, within 30 minutes, I should have finished this question. If I'm not done, I'll leave space, move on to the next question, 30 minutes. In my faculty, we use 2 hours, 30 minutes to answer the whole law questions. So I usually time myself. Timing is very, very important. And the last thing is that you have to write well. One of the things I do is, aside from giving a proper introduction, aside from writing fast, I usually write well. I usually structure my work like paragraphing. In fact, my authorities, I use red pen, and my writing have to be very legible. And one thing about writing fast is that when you write fast, you don't really write, your writing might not really be that legible yet. But please try as much as possible to make it neat and legible. Trust me, that would really help you. You have to write well. Your authorities, your statutory provisions, your judicial authorities, they should be written in red pen. You know, there's this kind of attractions that come with it. You know, having written everything you want to write in blue pen and writing authorities with red pen, it speaks a lot about your neatness. It speaks a lot about, you know, there's something called aesthetics, so it brings that out as well. So on my last point for tonight is, how to combine with other engagements. So like while Oluwakemi was reading my profile, she mentioned that I was the president of the Law Student Society. She mentioned that I was the chief chancellor of Legal Magnets and Company. She also mentioned some other things. While I was even an undergraduate, aside from being a politician, aside from being I usually play football. Like I play football. In fact, Ifola Joluwa Busayo was my group leader while I was in law school, and we won the gold medal together. Like I do a lot of activities. I play football. I represent my faculty in debate competitions, moots and mocks. I do a lot of things. I see myself as an all-rounder. So I would love to talk about this, that how well can we combine this? Now, I believe that some of us, while we progress in this legal career, will start engaging in other activities. Some of you will become some of you will become the leaders of your faculty, the leaders beyond your faculty. In fact, your school at large. So while you find yourself here, how can you combine these activities with your academic excellence? Now, this is very simple. One thing I do is I meditate a lot. What do I mean by meditating a lot? You can see me, I can be playing my football, I can be playing my game, I can be gisting with my friends, I can be doing any other thing during my leisures. And one thing I do is I meditate. I think about what I want to write in my exam. I can be talking to you now. I might be lost. You can just say that I'm remembering one judicial authority in my head. It might be that I'm remembering the fact of Kyla versus Carbolic Smoke Ball. You might like it is just one thing I do. Like I meditate a lot. I try not to forget the things I've read. So at every opportunity you get, try to meditate, because it is not every time that you be opportune to take materials everywhere to read and read and read. No, it is not every time you read. It is not every time you stare at your PDFs. It is not every time you stare at your textbook. Sometimes you can just be alone. You can just be somewhere. It might even be you can be on a queue at the canteen, or you might even be eating or something. Just keep meditating. The more you think about this thing, the better they become. So that will be all from me. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much, Bashir Mohammed. We learnt a lot. I'm sure we've learnt a lot. I'm sure we've learnt a lot. Please, I know our hands are not too busy. Can we like drop our reactions for our speakers so far? Shei F1, Olua Busayo, Bashir Mohammed. Can we drop our reactions? Let them know that we feel them, we've heard them, we've listened to them, and we've been educated so far. I muted my mic so that I'll give us the chance to like drop our reactions very well. And I don't see much reactions here. All right, thank you very much, and thank you to all our speakers. I'll be introducing our last speaker now, in the person of the current president of the incomparable Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, the award-winning, initiative-driven Timothy Ayorinde. Okay, it seems like he's not on this call. Oh, I just got a message now that he would not be available due to unforeseen circumstances. You know, dealing with the problems of the faculty and whatnot, like he always does. So I would be handing over to the efficient, most reliable, most composed. What other words can I use to describe him? Award winning. All right. Enough joking around. I'll be handing over to our 001 of the dynamic class, Lord 28, in the person of Lord Deleke. It's sad that I don't actually know his full name, but he would make himself introduced, right? So let's give up our reactions once again for the 001 of the dynamic class, Lord 28. Lord Deleke, you have the floor.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So, I would like to say a very big thank you to everyone for joining this call. I understand that we had a meeting at a very crucial time, the election period of the faculty, overnight period, tests and exams approaching. But we just have to put the webinar together so we can learn from the wealth of knowledge of our well-experienced speakers, our well-seasoned speakers. So first of all, I'd like to say a very big thank you to God Almighty for making this possible, and a very big thank you to our speakers, Oluwabusayo Ifonlaja, the double first class lawyer from Now University and the BGS of the Nigerian Law School 2024-2025. A very big thank you to Bashiru Mohammed, former president of the Olabisi Onabanjo University, first class lawyer too. And a very big thank you to Sheyi Emmanuel Farumbi Sheyi F1, the president-elect of the Incomparable Faculty of Law. Very big thank you to all our speakers and to Timothy Ayanride, because he's not here, but I understand that the duties of the sitting president take so much, and that is why he's absent from this meeting. So a very big thank you to everyone. Thank you for coming. I hope that what you have learned in this meeting, you are going to implement them, and you are going to see the desired changes and the desired results that you expect. So a very big thank you to our host, Aromavu Oluwakemi Sewano. A big thank you to the academic committee, the person of Oluwagbotemi Lawrence, and to the academic unit as a whole. Thank you to all members of Lot 20, to people that joined us from University of Lagos. Thank you to all members of Lot 29 and everybody from the Incomparable Faculty of Law as a whole. Once again, thank you to God Almighty for making this meeting a success. Thank you very much. There is a recording of this meeting on YouTube, and you can go back to listen anytime you want. I'm going to send the link out, I think, tomorrow. Thank you, everyone. We bring the meeting to an end.